pickup trucks have become so imposing over the years, and apparently this is a problem.
The moment the discount was offered, the entire system confessed its guilt. We are not talking about a small rebate or a couple $1,000s off a trade-in. This is $15,000, $20,000, even $30,000 slashed instantly off a truck they swore was worth every cent just 6 months ago. The illusion of value they spent years building just burned to the ground. For years, the sticker was sacred. You paid it or you went without. Now, that same number is a public, humiliating punchline. These deep cuts aren't a sudden burst of generosity. They are a full-blown scream of desperation. Every single unsold pickup sitting under the hot lot lights costs them money, hour after hour, and they cannot stop the bleeding. What are they truly hiding behind these sudden, dramatic, limited-time offers? And how long before the next brand has to fall on its sword? Watch closely, because the scam was never the sale they're offering now. The unforgivable lie was the initial price tag itself. But to understand the collapse, you have to rewind a few years to the moment they crossed the line and betrayed their entire customer base. There was a time not very long ago when a hard-working family could walk onto a dealer's lot and buy a great, well-equipped truck for around $40,000. It was the sweet spot, enough to tow the boat, haul the kids, and still feel proud driving through town. Then, in just 5 short years, the industry exploited a generational shortage as the perfect excuse to ratchet prices up to $60,000, $70,000, and then a shocking $80,000. They were absolutely certain you had no choice but to keep paying their inflated prices. And you did. Families emptied savings, signed long, suffocating loans, and even went above MSRP because dealers pretended the market justified it. But everyone knew the real driver was pure, unapologetic corporate greed, dressed up in the language of supply and demand. Asking $80,000 for some leather seats and chrome trim was the moment they deeply misread the American buyer. Every monthly payment since felt like a profound insult, a sting that never faded. That silent resentment, that feeling of being scammed and squeezed dry, has been fueling the revenge buyers are taking now. The tide has now shifted violently. The power dynamic is reversed, and the crippling panic you used to feel is now radiating straight from their boardroom. That $30,000 gap between the sticker and the actual selling price isn't a favor. It's a brutal, honest admission that the MSRP was always a lie built on phantom value and corporate arrogance. Imagine walking onto the dealer's asphalt today. You're not greeted by empty spaces and waiting lists. You're met by endless rows of glistening trucks, stacked bumper to bumper, every color, every trim. Where the salesman once scoffed, he now trips over himself to hand you the keys. The truth is unavoidable. They need you more than you could ever need them. This overflowing supply changes everything. Those millions of unsold vehicles are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They are pure, undeniable leverage in your pocket. Every single day, a truck sits unsold. The manufacturer is losing money, and the dealer is paying interest. The financial clock is ticking loudly in their office while you leisurely stroll away. You hold all the cards now, and that desperate edge in the salesman's voice when you hesitate at the price. That's the sound of an industry losing its absolute grip. Yet the shocking part is that the industry saw this catastrophe coming and still kept the lines moving. The manufacturers had signed contracts and bet that buyers would simply accept whatever sticker they slapped on the glass. The assembly line kept running at full speed, as if the shortage never ended. Why? Because slowing production costs them more in lost efficiency and renegotiated contracts than simply drowning the market in inventory. They decided it was better to stack up thousands of unsold trucks on lots than to mothball a factory line. The very machine they built to squeeze you is now strangling them from the inside. But that's when the self-imposed deadlines finally turned against them. The auto industry's worst enemy has never been the customer. It's the calendar. For the executives, every quarterly report, every model year changeover, and every looming policy deadline is a ticking financial bomb. When the clock runs out, executives lose massive bonuses, shareholders get restless, and the pressure rolls straight to the showroom floor. That's exactly what happened this year. Model year changeovers forced dealers to clear the old stock fast. Add in looming federal deadlines tied to electric vehicle tax credits and emissions targets, and suddenly Ford, Chevy, and Ram were forced to race against a calendar they could not stop. Credits were set to expire, meaning trucks had to be sold before the calendar flipped. This was not a calculated business move. It was sheer, unadulterated panic. The corporations weren't feeling generous. They were absolutely terrified of missing those targets. Their deadlines, intended to maximize profits and keep Wall Street calm, turned into the detonator that blew up the market. Meanwhile, buyers saw right through the performance. Suddenly, a truck that was worth $70,000 last spring was marked down by nearly $20,000 as the deadline loomed. And when the pressure hit hardest, the first massive brand to crack was forced to choose between profit and survival. Ford was the first giant to blink, but make no mistake, they didn't suddenly grow a conscience. Their discounts were purely tactical, aimed only at the mid-level trims they knew middle-class families actually bought. Like the XLT, they needed to keep volume moving, but they were still clinging desperately to their high-end fantasy. They hoped to sell volume on the bottom while maintaining huge margins on the top. But while Ford tried to split the difference, Chevy came straight for the throat. They looked at the same crowded lots and just ripped $10,000 right off the hood of their mainstream Silverado LT. Trucks that were $60,000 suddenly tumbled under the $50,000 mark. This was a statement. Chevy was willing to take the hit just to steal the middle-class buyers Ford had just scared away. It was an immediate, brutal acknowledgement that the price had been bloated beyond reason. But Ram went even further. They entered the fight with the deepest cut of all, $13,000 sliced off their popular Bighorn trim. That discount was not kindness. It was pure desperation. Ram had priced themselves too high from the start and were simply clawing their way back to reality, betting that the sheer size of the discount would overshadow their initial greed. Each cut from the big three was a loud public admission that the trucks were overpriced to begin with. Here is the final truth the automakers don't want you to see. Nobody is lining up to spend $90,000 on a pickup anymore. Those so-called luxury trucks, the Platinum, the Tungsten, are sitting on lots rotting, gathering dust. Buyers have completely abandoned the idea that chrome trim and a giant touchscreen justify taking out a mortgage-sized loan. These high-end trucks are not symbols of success anymore. They are now permanent monuments to corporate foolishness. Every day they sit unsold, they remind the entire industry that its luxury illusion is completely over. Even people with money are walking right past them. Why pay $90 when your neighbor just drove off in a nearly identical truck for half the price? And that's where the sting gets personal. Resale values are collapsing because of this fire sale. The guy who bought last year's prize for $80,000 is now watching an identical model sell for $40,000. For the first time, the proud owner of the newest, shiniest truck is not admired, he is pitied. That feeling of being burned is tearing at the very identity of truck ownership in America. The automakers are not done trying to get their money back. They will never accept smaller profits, and they are already writing the next playbook. The industry knows that even with discounts, the trucks are still too expensive for the average family, a fundamental mismatch between wages and prices. So, instead of a bloated sticker, they are hiding the pain by shifting to the payment trap. They slash interest rates and extend loan terms up to 7 or even 8 years. Suddenly, a $60,000 truck feels affordable. Not because it is, but because the math has been ruthlessly twisted. They would rather eat the interest than admit the truck was simply overpriced. Stretching the loan is not a relief. It is a debt shackle. A lower monthly bill hides the terrifying trap of longer debt and the inevitable collapse of resale value. They saved face in the showroom, but they cannot escape the larger truth. They will try to claw back every dollar they lost during this collapse. They will disguise desperation as innovation and rebrand greed as strategy. But now you know their game. You know the pressure points, the tactics, and the tricks. The walls they cracked, they are already trying to rebuild them around you. You must stay ahead of their next play.